And what good is a baby? There's nothing quite as frightening as someone who knows they are right. Nothing is ever too good to be true. It is right that we should stand by and act on our principles, but not right to hold them in obstinate blindness or retain them when proved to be erroneous. A man who is certain he is right is almost sure to be wrong. It is on record that when a young aspirant asked Faraday the secret of his success as a scientific investigator, he replied, "The secret is comprised in 3 words: work, finish, publish." Nothing is too wonderful to be true. I am busy right now again on electromagnetism and think I have got hold of a good thing, but can't say. It may be a weed instead of a fish that after all my labor too may at last pull up. I happen to have discovered a direct relation between magnetism and light, also electricity and light, and the field it opens is so large and I think rich. I will simply express my strong belief that point of self-education which consists of teaching the mind to resist its desires and inclinations until they are proved to be right, is the most important of all, not only in things of natural philosophy, but in every department of daily life. You will be astonished when I tell you what this curious play of carbon amounts to. A candle will burn for some 4, 5, 6, or 7 hours. What, then, must be the daily amount of carbon going up into the air in the way of carbonic acid? Then what becomes of it? Wonderful is it to find that the change produced by respiration is the very life and support of plants and vegetables that grow upon the surface of the earth. I can at any moment convert my time into money, but I do not require more of the latter than is sufficient for necessary purposes. Shall we educate ourselves in what is known, and then casting away all we have acquired, turn to ignorance for aid to guide us among the unknown? Why will people go astray when they have this blessed book to guide them? No wonder that my remembrance fails me, for I shall complete my 70 years next Sunday, the 22, and during these 70 years I have had a happy life, which still remains happy because of hope and content. But still try, for who knows what is possible. The important thing is to know how to take all things quietly. There is no more open door by which you can enter into the study of natural philosophy than by considering the physical phenomena of a candle. Who would not have been laughed at if he had said in 1800 that metals could be extracted from their ores by electricity, or that portraits could be drawn by chemistry? Chemistry is necessarily an experimental science. Its conclusions are drawn from data, and its principles supported by evidence from facts. What a weak, credulous, incredulous, unbelieving, superstitious, bold, frightened, what a ridiculous world ours is, as far as concerns the mind of man. How full of inconsistencies, contradictions, and absurdities it is. I declare that, taking the average of many minds that have recently come before me, I should prefer the obedience, affections, and instinct of a dog before it. A center of excellence is, by definition, a place where second-class people may perform first-class work. It is the great beauty of our science, chemistry, that advancement in it, whether in a degree great or small, instead of exhausting the subjects of research, opens the doors to further and more abundant knowledge, overflowing with beauty and utility. If the term education may be understood in so large a sense as to include all that belongs to the improvement of the mind, either by the acquisition of the knowledge of others or by increase of it through its own exertions, we learn by them what is the kind of education science offers to man. It teaches us to be neglectful of nothing, not to despise the small beginnings, for they precede of necessity all great things in the knowledge of science, either pure or applied. I shall be with Christ, and that is enough. Speculation? I have none. I am resting on certainties. The lecturer should give the audience full reason to believe that all his powers have been exerted for their pleasure and instruction. I have far more confidence in the one man who works mentally and bodily at a matter than in the 6 who merely talk about it. What a delight it is to think that you are quietly and philosophically at work in the pursuit of science, rather than fighting amongst the crowd of black passions and motives that seem nowadays to urge men everywhere into action. What incredible scenes everywhere, what unworthy motives ruled for the moment, under high-sounding phrases, and at the end what disgusting revolutions. I cannot conceive curved lines of force without the conditions of a physical existence in that intermediate space. Water is to me, I confess, a phenomenon which continually awakens new feelings of wonder as often as I view it. The condition of matter I have dignified by the term electronic, the electronic state. What do you think of that? Am I not a bold man, ignorant as I am, to coin words? Lectures which really teach will never be popular. Lectures which are popular will never really teach. I am no poet, but if you think for yourselves, as I proceed, the facts will form a poem in your minds. The book of nature which we have to read is written by the finger of God. When the contrary magnetic poles were on the same side, there was an effect produced on the polarized ray, and thus magnetic force and light were proved to have relation to each other. I could trust a fact and always cross-question an assertion. Nature is our kindest friend and best critic in experimental science if we only allow her intimations to fall unbiased on our minds. The world little knows how many of the thoughts and theories which have passed through the mind of a scientific investigator have been crushed in silence and secrecy by his own severe criticism and adverse examination. All are sure in their days except the wisest. He is the wisest philosopher who holds his theory with some doubt. Since peace is alone in the gift of God, and since it is He who gives it, why should we be afraid? His unspeakable gift in His beloved Son is the ground of no doubtful hope. The 5 essential entrepreneurial skills for success are concentration, discrimination, organization, innovation, and communication. But I must confess I am jealous of the term atom, for though it is very easy to talk of atoms, it is very difficult to form a clear idea of their nature, especially when compounded bodies are under consideration. The philosopher should be a man willing to listen to every suggestion, but determined to judge for himself. He should not be a respecter of persons, but of things. Truth should be his primary object. Why, sir, there is every probability that you will soon be able to tax it," said to William Gladstone, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, when he asked about the practical worth of electricity. There's nothing quite as frightening as someone who knows they are right, but still try, for who knows what is possible. Magnetic lines of force convey a far better and purer idea than the phrase magnetic current or magnetic flood. It avoids the assumption of a current or of two currents and also of fluids or a fluid, yet conveys a full and useful pictorial idea to the mind. With respect to committees, as you would perceive, I am very jealous of their formation. I mean working committees. I think business is always better done by few than by many. I also think the working few ought not to be embarrassed, by the idle many, and further I think the idle many ought not to be honored by association with the working few. I do not think that my patience has ever come nearer to an end than when compelled to hear long rambling malapropos inquiries of members who still have nothing in consequence to propose that shall advance the business. As when on some secluded branch in forest far and wide sits perched an owl, who, full of self-conceit and self-created wisdom, explains, comments, condemns, ordains and order things not understood, yet full of importance still holds forth to stocks and stones around, so sits and scribbles Mike. I have taken your advice, and the names used are anode, cathode, anions, cations, and ions. The last I shall have but little occasion for. I had some hot objections made to them here and found myself very much in the condition of the man with his son and ass who tried to please everybody. But when I held up the shield of your authority, it was wonderful to observe how the tone of objection melted away. I have been so electrically occupied of late that I feel as if hungry for a little chemistry. But then the conviction crosses my mind that these things hang together under one law, and that the more haste we make onwards each in our own path, the sooner we shall arrive and meet each other at that state of knowledge of natural causes from which all varieties of effects may be understood and enjoyed. I express a wish that you may, in your generation, be fit to compare to a candle, that you may, like it, shine as lights to those about you, that, in all your actions, you may justify the beauty of the taper by making your deeds honorable and effectual in the discharge of your duty to your fellow men. A man in 24 hours converts as much as 7 ounces of carbon into carbonic acid. A milch cow will convert 70 ounces, and a horse 79 ounces, solely by the act of respiration. That is, the horse in 24 hours burns 79 ounces of charcoal, or carbon, in his organs of respiration to supply his natural warmth in that time, not in a free state, but in a state of combination. Although we know nothing of what an atom is, yet we cannot resist forming some idea of a small particle, which represents it to the mind. There is an immensity of facts which justify us in believing that the atoms of matter are in some way endowed or associated with electrical powers, to which they owe their most striking qualities, and amongst them their mutual chemical affinity. All your names I and my friend approve of, or nearly all as to sense and expression, but I am frightened by their length and sound when compounded. As you will see, I have taken dioxide and scaled because they agree best with my natural standard east and west. I like anode and cathode better as to sound, but all to whom I have shown them have supposed at first that by anode I meant no way. When I consider the multitude of associated forces which are diffused through nature, when I think of that calm balancing of their energies which enables those most powerful in themselves, most destructive to the world's creatures and economy, to dwell associated together and be made subservient to the wants of creation, I rise from the contemplation more than ever impressed with the wisdom, the beneficence, and grandeur, beyond our language to express, of the great disposer of us all. I propose to distinguish these bodies by calling those anions which go to the anode of the decomposing body, and those passing to the cathode, cations, and when I have occasion to speak of these together, I shall call them ions. I think chemistry is being frittered away by the hair-splitting of the organic chemists. We have new compounds discovered, which scarcely differ from the known ones, and when discovered are valueless very illustrations perhaps of their refinements in analysis, but very little aiding the progress of true science. Whereas, according to the declaration of that true man of the world Talleyrand, the use of language is to conceal the thoughts. This is to declare in the present instance, when I say I am not able to bear much talking, it means really, and without any mistake, or equivocation, or oblique meaning, or implication, or subterfuge, or omission, that I am not able, being at present rather weak in the head, and able to work no more. Now I must take you to a very interesting part of our subject, to the relation between the combustion of a candle and that living kind of combustion which goes on within us. In every one of us there is a living process of combustion going on very similar to that of a candle, and I must try to make that plain to you. For it is not merely true in a poetical sense the relation of the life of man to a taper, and if you will follow, I think I can make this clear. I have long held an opinion, almost amounting to conviction, in common I believe with many other lovers of natural knowledge, that the various forms under which the forces of matter are made manifest have one common origin, or, in other words, are so directly related and mutually dependent that they are convertible, as it were, one into another, and possess equivalence of action. Your remarks upon chemical notation with the variety of systems which have arisen, and see, had almost stirred me up to regret publicly that such hindrances to the progress of science should exist. I cannot help thinking it is a most unfortunate thing that men who, as experimentalists and philosophers, are the most fit to advance the general cause of science and knowledge should, by promulgation of their own theoretical views under the form of nomenclature, notation, or scale, retard its progress. You can hardly imagine how I am struggling to exert my poetical ideas just now for the discovery of analogies and remote figures respecting the earth, sun, and all sorts of things, for I think it is the true way, corrected by judgment, to work out a discovery. When a mathematician engaged in investigating physical actions and results has arrived at his own conclusions, may they not be expressed in common language as fully, clearly, and definitely as in mathematical formulae? If so, Would it not be a great boon to such as well to express them, so translating them out of their hieroglyphics that we might also work upon them by experiment? In place of practicing wholesome self-abnegation, we always make the wish the father to the thought. We receive as friendly that which agrees with. We resist with dislike that which opposes us, whereas the very reverse is required by every dictate of common sense. Occasionally and frequently the exercise of the judgment ought to end in absolute reservation. It may be very distasteful and great fatigue to suspend a conclusion, but as we are not infallible, so we ought to be cautious. We shall eventually find our advantage, for the man who rests in his position is not so far from right as he who, proceeding in a wrong direction, is ever increasing his distance. When I came to know Mrs. Marcet personally, how often I cast my thoughts backward, delighting to connect the past and the present. How often, when sending a paper to her as a thank you offering, I thought of my first instructress, Tyndall. I must remain plain Michael Faraday to the last, and let me now tell you that if accepted the honor which the Royal Society desires to confer upon me, I would not answer for the integrity of my intellect for a single year. Michael Faraday, famous as English scientist who contributed to the study of electromagnetism and electrochemistry. Born on September 22nd, 1791. Died on August 5th, 1867. Born in Newington, Butts, London, United Kingdom. Died at age 75. Michael Faraday was an English scientist renowned for his contribution to the study of electrochemistry and electromagnetism. Faraday left school at an early age and joined a local bookbinder, and during his leisure time he used to engage in teaching himself new scientific methods. The first step towards his success came when he built the first electric motor. Having deep interest in chemistry, he developed one of the most useful equipments in chemistry, the Bunsen burner, which is still used in the laboratories. He has made path-breaking discoveries and developments in electricity and electromagnetism, which include popularizing terms like ion, cathode, anode, and electrode. Faraday grew to become one of the greatest scientists the world knows today. His later discoveries and findings lead to the foundation of electromagnetic theory. He inspired hundreds of scientists and common man through his discoveries and inventions. We have accumulated some notable quotes and thoughts from the great scientist. Let us browse through the sayings and quotations by Michael Faraday on self-education, natural philosophy, desire, common sense, opposition, chemistry, electricity, memory, and infinity.